Hello, so welcome back. So today we're going to talk about system variables and actually do some more interesting stuff with p5JS. But before we do that, I think I need to talk to you about what's actually going on with these functions here. So the setup function is called once when the sketch is created, and then the function draw is called continuously, stuck in a loop, and updates about 60 frames per second. So every 60 frames this is called again and renders the new image on screen. So you can't really see that now with a static object, but we're going to introduce these system variables that allow us to update the object on screen, and you'll have a bit of an idea of what's going on. So when we create the canvas, we create it once, and that's why it's created in the setup function, and then this is called continuously. So what we can do is, let's say we change our x value here to mouse x. You can see the mouse now, as the mouse moves left and right to the screen, the circle is locked to it, and you can see it doesn't move anywhere else, it just moves in the x direction. Now we can also change that to the y direction, so let's say mouse y, and now you can see it kind of follows wherever the mouse is on screen by the center, which is pretty cool, right? So this is being continuously called as the mouse moves, so every 60 frames per second. So let's just do some more interesting stuff with the circle first before we move on. So we can say something like stroke, and let's say we want to define the stroke as being, let's say grey, let's say white, and we want to then make the, we want to set the transparency, so let's say something like as the mouse moves further on the screen, the transparency of the stroke becomes more visible. That's a bit hard to see. Let's try that again. Let's do stroke weight, and let's do it so mouse Y. So as you move on the screen, the outline of the circle becomes bigger. Which is kind of cool, right? So you have this weird looking shape that does this interesting behavior. So the transparency, as we go further left, the transparency gets smaller and smaller, so you can see it kind of fades off to 0. And as we go higher and higher, our stroke weight, so the stroke width goes bigger, goes smaller. And as we go down, transparency increases, transparency decreases, because we can see it more as kind of tongue twister here. Transparency decreases and the weight becomes bigger. So you can kind of see that. It's cool, right? Okay, so let's get rid of that. We don't really need that for now, but you have a rough idea of what it does, yeah? Let's say we move this background call to here, and we remove it now. The general thinking here of what should happen, because I haven't tested it out, but what should happen is, because the setup's called once, the background is drawn once, and then the draw function is called continuously. So what that should do, it should look something like a paintbrush being painted across the screen. So the circle is being duplicated multiple times every time the frame updates, because there's nothing clearing it. So you get this weird looking wormy effect. Cool, right? Okay, but it just gives you an idea of what's going on behind the scenes. Alright, another thing we can talk about is some function presses. So we won't cover this in detail, but just some function presses, just so you know. So let's say mouse is pressed. Okay, so when the mouse is clicked, then some code runs. So what we can do is essentially just say something like function mouse pressed, and then we can say background 0. So what we assume should happen is it does the drawing painting thing, but when we click a mouse button, the background should clear. So okay, that's what we want. Cool. Now we're just going to talk about system variables for now and other variables. We'll go into functions and define functions in a bit, later on, so when you have a rough idea of what this stuff does, and then we can move on to more complex stuff. But yeah, have a play around with it. I'll save this sketch in the description so you can play around with it. But besides that, I think I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.